This is KRON-4 News with the headlines at 4.
Coming up next, I'm going to be joined by estate planning attorney Michelle Lerman. What is a estate planning attorney? What is a probate attorney? I got the answers for you coming up right after the break. I'm excited to introduce the audience to an attorney, an estate planning attorney, a probate attorney. Michelle Lerman, what is a probate and estate planning attorney?
A probate and estate planning attorney is an attorney who helps people plan their assets for their demise or their incapacity. So I work with families, anyone with assets, anyone with people they care about and love, and we plan the estate to minimize fees, expenses, taxes.
Now, what does the word probate actually mean?
Probate is a court procedure. There's a courthouse, a judge. It's the mechanism for transferring assets after demise. Obviously, someone who's deceased can't sign a deed, for example, can't sign any documents to transfer assets. So probate is a court procedure designed to pass on assets.
I personally don't ever want to die, but when I do die, my assets are going to be passed on, whether I like it or not.
That's right.
That's what an estate planning attorney helps the process of. It helps pass on the assets. Sometimes it's the cash, sometimes it's the house, sometimes it's a combination of both. It can be a great way to keep your estate private when you die. What are some of the other advantages of using an estate planner to help you with that passing of assets?
I think you want to assemble the right team, and so when you do that during your lifetime, like most of the families that I work with do, then there's a team in place to really help and hold the hand of the people left behind to provide for some guidance. The other thing that planning does is that if you're incapacitated, the planning is going to determine who can handle your assets for you, who's going to take control if you can't. So in a way, it gives a lot of peace of mind while people are living and sets the stage so that things can move smoothly.
Now, I can give you a good example of why an estate planning attorney makes a lot of sense, because they kind of hold your hand and calm you down and truly get you to understand this is how you want to pass your assets. I had a friend whose grandfather didn't like the son, but liked the granddaughter, but liked his daughter but didn't like her kids. So in this 2 generations of grandkids and kids, he basically split the family, and the way his assets went in retirement or went when he died, the family hates each other. It wasn't passed on efficiently. It wasn't passed on with any sort of thought on the kids. It got taxed extra because he skipped a generation in his planning. That's just one horror story. I'm sure you see many like that.
I do. Without planning, I see inadequate liquidity. I see, especially in this down real estate market, homes need to be sold in order to cover estate tax. I see families not knowing what to do. I see families fighting. I see families where the person hasn't even indicated who's going to handle everything for them, who should be the executor of the estate. So it really is much better to do the planning.
Now, when we come back after the break, I'm going to bring Michelle Lerman back. We're going to talk about some of the seminars that she's got coming up. They're free seminars in the Bay Area. It may not be appropriate for you, but maybe it's appropriate so that you know, because your parents are going to be going through this. So we're going to be talking a little bit about that. Who's probate appropriate for? Who probate attorneys are inappropriate for? We'll talk a little Michael Jackson probate law as well. We'll take a break here. We'll be right back. A lot of what I try to do on the show is get you to retirement. Sometimes I'll talk mortgages, sometimes I'll talk investing. Today I'm talking estate planning with estate planning attorney Michelle Lerman. Michelle, let's give people the easy example of what an estate planning attorney does. Anna Nicole Smith. She was a mess. She married a super wealthy guy. He passed away. He didn't pass his assets on to his kids the way the kids wanted to. Things were challenged. Things became public. Then she goes on to have a kid and another kid, and everything in her trust was just crazy messed up. Talk a little bit about Anna Nicole to give us that perspective of what you do.
That is such a great example about what not to do with planning. On the other hand, Michael Jackson, which perhaps we'll have time to talk about, is an example of what to do. Anna Nicole Smith, if you recall, had a child, but the child was not only not named in the estate plan, but her estate plan said that she specifically disinherited any afterborn children. So here she had this child, and yet the child wasn't named in the plan, so it was very confusing because the plan specifically disinherited after-born children.
Now, that's an excellent example of she should have updated her plan when she had a second kid, because she probably only thought she was going to only have one kid per se. Now, you say she did things wrong, and we don't even know who the husband of the second kid was for the longest time, which makes it even crazier on passing on assets and letting them live off your wealth, so to speak. Let's talk Michael Jackson. You said he did a good job.
Yeah, he did a good job. As much of a character as Michael Jackson was, and he was a character and very different, very unusual and out there, obviously very talented, but when he planned his estate, he did put thought into that ultimately had a pretty good result. It's been a couple of months now, so we can sort of see what's happened with that. But he did have a will, he did have a trust, he did have a good team in place, team that was going to act as trustees and control his estate. So he did. It's an example of how important it is to do proper planning.
Now, estate planning is something you should update every 3 to 5 years, because every 3 to 5 years your life changes. I was talking with you this morning, and a couple of your kids have just gone off to college. So what you wanted for them to do to live off your wealth 5 years ago, now it would probably be slightly different. Is that the basic idea of why you want to update a will and trust?
Well, you also want to update because we're living in a historic time right now. We have a $3.5 million exclusion, and I'm betting that most of the listeners out there prepared their plan with an exclusion much, much lower than that. Our laws are very different today than they were, and so I would say in this climate you want to be looking at your plan even more frequently than every 3 to 5 years to look at estate tax laws, family situation, kids moving out of the house, going off to college.
Medical directives, things along those lines always change, and I tend to tell people with long-term care, which is not what we're talking about here, is you tend to want to start thinking about getting it around 40, 50, or 60 once you've accumulated wealth. You don't need it when you're 30 years old, long-term care. You're not likely to need it when you're 30 years old, so you can delay it a little bit. When should someone think about getting an estate plan or having an estate planning attorney work with them, Michelle?
When someone has assets, they need to see about an estate plan. So I use as a guideline anything over $100,000 in assets, and when you buy a home, it's time to have an estate plan, because you see in California we have a statutory probate fee, and it's very, very expensive to have to go through that courthouse and have that judge involved. So when we buy a home, it's best to put it in a living trust. We avoid all probate fees in doing that.
Now, you got some seminars coming up in the Bay Area. These are free to attend. Typically, you should have some net worth tied towards you, or i.e. be needing an estate planner. Tell me a little bit about what you talk about at these events, and we'll show them on the screen in just a second or two.
We're going to teach people how to maintain their privacy, how to protect their children. Divorce rates are very high, about 50%. I've even heard statistics over that. We'll talk about how an estate plan can protect our children from divorce, to protect those assets, how to completely eliminate probate fees, how to minimize estate tax, and in most times we can even eliminate estate tax. So I think there's going to be very, very valuable information for anyone who has any assets or who has anyone that they care about and love.
Now, we got them right there on the screen. There's an event coming up tomorrow morning in Novato. I don't have the hotel is actually the Courtyard by Marriott. And then you're going to do an event in San Rafael next week, and then 2 events in Mill Valley. These are free, but you do have to contact Michelle Lerman at lermanlaw.com, lermanlaw.com. And there's the phone number. It's 415-454-0455. So whether you're in Novato, San Rafael, Mill Valley, basically Marin or San Francisco, it's easy to get to. And I like her. She's an attorney that I like, and we need more of these people out here who can help us as we age, deal with our assets and make sure that we pass them on in an intelligible manner. Things change fast in your life, and 18 years ago, Patrick Swayze was America's sexiest man. 18 years later, he's dead. So keep that in mind. Financial planning, critically important, and I appreciate Michelle Lerman coming on. You can find her at lermanlaw.com. Her and her husband, super attorneys, good people in the Bay Area. Let's take a break here, but when I come back, I'm going to be talking with Catherine Heenan, the cat. Meow.